Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Um, so inshallah, everybody is doing well and everybody is hunkered down trying to battle this pandemic, you know. And first and foremost, I'd like to make a dua to all the essential workers, a dua to everybody in the places most affected. That would be Iran, Iraq, Palestine, Lebanon, Al-Emirat, Bahrain, especially all the Shia Muslims in Bahrain and all the Bahraini Shias that are stuck in Iran and cannot return home. As you know, the government of Bahrain is ruled by Sunni supremacists, despite the majority of the people on the island being Shia, and that Bahraini residents are stuck in Iran and are not able to go home because of the government. So yeah, so inshallah they can go home and they get justice and whatnot. So I'm gonna make a quick dua for them. Ya Allah, Ya Rab, please protect the people of Iraq, Iran, Syria, Palestine, Lebanon, Bahrain, Yemen, San Francisco, Oakland, San Jose, Chicago, Seattle, San Diego, and the west side of Anchorage. Please keep us healthy. Please protect us from our oppressors. Please protect us from the COVID-19. And please protect us from evil politicians like Donald Trump, Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, and Mike Dunleavy. I mean, and you can only say I mean when you're in making a dua, because it's not halal to say it's I mean when you're making salat, because I mean is technically not an Arabic word, by the way. It's actually a Hebrew word, but so that's why you're not supposed to say after you recite the Surah Al-Fatiha, after you say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Malik Yawmiddin, Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in, Ihdina as-siratal mustaqim, siratal ladhina an'amta alayhim ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. After that, the Sunnis would say Ameen, but us Shia, we do not say Ameen because that is a word from the Yahudis and is not the Sunnah of the Ahlul Bayt. Okay, so we don't say that. But here we go. Here's the controversy I'd like to talk about today. And it has to do with one of the tyrants I just mentioned in the dua. And here's the thing. We're going to talk about Dimwit Dunleavy. So, he is hiding his evangelical conservatism and his lack of action behind an interfaith facade, shall we say. So here's what he posted. This is Dimwit Dunleavy's Facebook page. Governor Mike Dunleavy. Tomorrow is Alaska's prayer, so that will be today, day of prayer and hope. Please join me on Friday, April 10 at 2 p.m. in prayer and reflection for our great state as we continue to grapple with the effects of COVID-19. I will be joined by religious and community leaders from Alaska to lift up prayers, thoughts of hope, health, and unity. Okay? So, Dunleavy, if you don't know, is a conservative evangelical Republican. Dunleavy has an Islamophobic anti-Shia agenda. And if you see, let's read the comments. Because I've been very active in the comments, trying to combat this slander. So you have all kinds of evangelicals in the comments, and I'm out here regulating the comments. And largely, Dunleavy's base is evangelical. And what this looks like is a violation of the First Amendment, which is the separation of church and state. Okay? See? Yeah, you have a lot of evangelical Christians, and that's one of the biggest problems with this state is all the evangelical Christians. So this is a separation of church and state issue. Now, I'm no fan of the U.S. Constitution. Actually, I despise the U.S. Constitution. But this is what the only thing, the separation of church and state is the only good part of the Constitution. Why? Because it protects, supposedly, right, in theory, right, because it doesn't do much of a job of protecting, it protects the United States, from becoming a Christian theocracy. Now, what would a Christian theocracy look like? A Christian theocracy would look like an expanded settler state with more persecution and more state surveillance of the Muslim community. That's what a Christian theocracy would look like. That's what Mike Dunleavy wants. Okay? So now, here's a little background of the separation of church and state in Alaska, and actually why a religious person like myself, again, context matters here at all times, right? Why a religious Shia Muslim like myself would actually support the separation of church and state. So I grew up in a town called Anchorage, Alaska, which is a backwards conservative cesspool filled with military, oil money, and Christians. Okay, so I'm Muslim, obviously. I've stated a million times, I'm a Shia Muslim. My great-grandmother came from Lebanon. My great-grandfather was half Iraqi, half Iranian, and was born in Iraq and moved here as a young child to the States. So that's my background. Okay, so why would I support, as a fairly religious Shia Muslim, support the separation of church and state? And here's why I support the separation of church and state. I support separation of church and state because growing up, when I was a young kid on the south side of Anchorage, when I was in school and whatnot, there was a Christian cult called the Young Life that was in our schools, and they were proselytizing kids at lunch and feeding them beef jerky. And alhamdulillah, I got him kicked out. It took me a long time to get him kicked out, but alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar, I got him kicked out. But here is the legacy and the negative effects of having Young Life in our schools is brainwashed. The youth in this town is brainwashed, and they're a bunch of conservative troglodytes, man. And wallahi, this is the truth, okay? The youth in Alaska are a bunch of conservative troglodytes, and it's trickled up to electing a tyrant, a conservative tyrant like Mike Dunleavy, who is violating the separation of church and state left and right. Here's yet another example. April 6, 2020, 3:47 p.m. Mike Dunleavy, Governor Mike Dunleavy of Alaska Post. Today I welcome this Samaritan's Purse DC-8 aircraft carrying nearly 18,000 pounds of critical medical supplies at the Ted Stevens Anchorage International Airport. I requested those supplies from Samaritan's Purse President Franklin Graham as our state continues to battle COVID-19. The supplies will be headed to rural Alaska to support our heroic healthcare workers. Thank you to Franklin Graham and Samaritan's Purse team for your continuous service and help to Alaska. And then you got photos. And you got more photos. This is, folks, this is clearly a separation of church and state issue. And I'm willing to file a lawsuit against Mike Dunleavy. They even have a cross on their plane. Let's zoom in on that so you get a good image of that. They even have the cross on the tail of their plane. Samaritan's Purse, they are a Islamophobic, crypto-Zionist, anti-Shia organization, and there's Dunleavy standing in front of the plane, and they support the Zionist entity. They support all sorts of colonial endeavors, proselytizing against indigenous people, brainwashing indigenous people. They support colonialism, Zionism, Islamophobia, and anti-Shia bigotry. This is the Zionist, Islamophobic, anti-Shia agenda of Governor Mike Dunleavy of Alaska. This is his violation of the church and separation of church and state clause in the First Amendment of the Constitution. Inshallah, we will file a lawsuit against him and we will sue him, and inshallah, we will win. This is a blatant violation of the separation of church and state. And in addition to that, this clown wants to exploit interfaith discourse. This clown, who has a bunch of Islamophobic troglodytes as his followers, wants to exploit interfaith discourse between Muslims and Christians in order to pursue his Islamophobic anti-Shia agenda. Now, there is limited capacity for interfaith discourse. We will not be doing any kinds of discourse with Protestants or Catholics. That discourse will be strictly limited to Orthodox Christians, predominantly those from places like Russia, Lebanon, Syria, and Palestine, and to a lesser extent, Armenia. But if you look, at who's been liking this, all right. Look at who's been commenting on here. I've heavily been commenting. But if you look at who's been commenting, Matsu Christian Center, Church of God, and Alaska Bible Institute. And who's been sharing it? Let's go to see whoever's been sharing it. Let's see if any church has been sharing this. Okay. But we know that churches have been commenting on this post. We know that he's colluded with the Samaritan's Purse. And we know that there's sectarian BS. By the way, this guy, Bledden Wilson, this clown right here, Bledden Wilson, who made some really racist Islamophobic comments toward me after I posted on this post. This clown right here, he's an Islamophobe, a war criminal, and a racist. He made some Islamophobic comments on the post. This is the kind of Islamophobia I face for speaking up against Dunleavy and his violation of the First Amendment. As a Muslim, There we go. Oh, and there's a comment from the Alaska Bible Institute. That's how you know Dunleavy is violating the First Amendment. Look at that. Look at all these conservative troglodytes supporting dimwit Mike Dunleavy. Yo, this is in my literally in my backyard. Literally, this is going on in our backyard here in Anchorage, Alaska. Wallahi, I'm not going to let this. And then there's the Church of the Light of the World, Light of the World, which is a church. Whoop, I don't want to cover my camera. There's a church in Juneau, and they're posting. Okay, so now if you see the kind of people that support Dunleavy, all these people supporting Dunleavy, they are conservative troglodytes. They are Zionists. And this is where that clown Bled and Wilson, I reported him. Oh, so Matsu Christian Church of God posted. Their bishop posted. And then, so this clown, Bled and Wilson, accused me of proselytizing and generating religious discord. And then he claims to be a war criminal. By the way, that comment has since been deleted because he also posted something very violent and racist towards me. And then, so I say, I'm literally part Afghan. Shout out to Faizabad. And I call him out as a war criminal. And he tells me to leave this country, okay? When that comment has since been deleted. And I said, look, don't tell me to leave your country after you destroyed a place where my family is from. And I say, America's a settler colony, not a country, and the land belongs to the Dena'ina, Eyak, Inupiaq, Yupik, Deg. I think it's called Deg Hitan. Y'all correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's called Deg Hitan and the Gwich'in people. And I told him to quit calling Muslims derogatory terms. And then he said, oh, you're an embarrassment if you're a Tajik. Oh, so he called me embarrassment because I'm not an imperialist puppet like all the Tajik people back home in Afghanistan. And I said, and I'm not AQ, I'm definitely not any loose. I'm not an imperialist puppet. And I'm actually, I believe it or not, part Iranian, Iraqi, and Lebanese as well as Afghan. So, I had to stand up for myself. But, yo, this clown Bled and Wilson, man, he's a war criminal, he's a racist, and he's an Islamophobe. This is the kind of people that dimwit Mike Dunleavy attracts. Dunleavy is an Islamophobe who is, he is exploiting, he is violating the settler churches, the separation of church and state. He is a settler, by the way. He's violating and he called me a Muj, which is short for Mujahideen, which is a racist, Islamophobic term that war criminals in the U.S. military use against Muslims. So Bled and Wilson is an Islamophobe and a racist and anti-Shia bigot, a conservative troglodyte and an Orientalist, and a war criminal. This is the kind of people that support Dunleavy. The scummiest scumbags in the most conservative cesspools. All these basement dwellers, man. All these basement dwellers are a bunch of disbelievers, man. And they support dimwit Mike Dunleavy, who's exploiting interfaith discourse to promote his right-wing conservative agenda and to violate the separation of church and state. Mike Dunleavy is an elected official, not a religious scholar or a religious leader, an imam or nothing like that, or a Orthodox Christian priest or nothing like that. Mike Dunleavy is a governor, an elected public official who is exploiting the separation of church and state and egging on his racist, Islamophobic, war criminal followers who are a bunch of racist, Islamophobic, conservative troglodytes. And we must stop this. He's blatantly violating the separation of church and state. He's blatantly discriminating against Muslims, egging on his followers, egging on his racist, Islamophobic followers. And wallahi, I'm not going to let this stand. And oh, here we go. One of his here we go. There is a racist official in the Dunleavy administration. I'm not sure what her name is, but she doesn't trust rural Alaska with early PFDs. Now, rural Alaska, I just clicked on the article, so it's loading up. So that's why the screen looks blank. Here it's on Must Read Alaska. Now, rural Alaska is predominantly indigenous. A lot of Yupik people and a lot of Inupiaq and Eyak and Gwich'in and Koyukon people live out there. This is Jennifer Johnston. Now, I'm not sure if I lived in Jennifer Johnston's district when I lived on the south side. I believe her district, I think I did live in her district, because she replaced Mike Hawker. Yeah, her district includes Potter Valley, Rabbit Creek, Bear Valley, parts of the Upper Hillside, Upper O'Malley, Lower O'Malley, Huffman. So literally the worst places in Anchorage to live. Now this racist troglodyte, Jennifer Johnston, does not trust rural Alaska with early PFDs. That's not borderline racist. That's straight up racist. And Dan Sullivan and Lisa Murkowski are denying a message was conveyed by their staffs. Obviously, they're liars. Republicans are liars. Democrats are liars. But, Jennifer Johnston, the racist Republican troglodyte from the south side of Anchorage, doesn't trust rural Alaska with the PFD because she's a racist and because rural Alaska is predominantly indigenous with a lot of Yupik people and a lot of Inupiaq and Gwich'in and Koyukon and Eyak people and Tlingit people out there. So this is the backward cesspool that Alaska is. This is the threat and the danger that a Dunleavy administration poses to both rural Alaskans in places like Togiak, Cordova, Nome, Kotzebue, Utqiagvik, and urban Alaskans on the west side of Anchorage and in Mountain View, Fairview, downtown, places like Government Hill too. This is the kind of threat that Dunleavy poses to us. The separation of church and state issue, the Islamophobia, racism, and anti-Shia bigotry of his supporters, that's just scratching the surface. Inshallah, we will defeat them. Inshallah, we will defeat both the Democrats and the Republicans, and the Green Party, inshallah, will rise to power. I will be doing everything in my power to get rid of Dunleavy and to expose the separation of church and state. Wallahi, I will do everything in my power. I got rid of Young Life out of the Anchorage School District. I defeated Young Americans for Liberty at Willamette University, and inshallah, I will defeat the Republican Party and the Democratic Party here in the state of Alaska. Folks, this scumbag troglodyte is exploiting a pandemic in order to violate the separation of church and state. Now, I hate the U.S. Constitution. Everybody knows I hate the U.S. Constitution. Why? Because it codifies racism and Islamophobia into law. The only section of the U.S. Constitution I have any remote respect for, other than maybe the 14th and 13th Amendments, although I don't think those go far enough. I think and I don't like the loopholes in those amendments that provide room for prison labor, which is a form of modern day slavery, and mass incarceration, which is modern day Jim Crow. But the First Amendment is truly the only good amendment in the Constitution. Why? The separation of church and state. Brothers and sisters, this country, the United States, has been a Christian theocracy from day one. The settlers were Christians. Ethnic cleansing and slavery and genocide were created in the name of Christianity. Islam is the one true religion. Islam is the one true religion of liberation. And if you can't see that based on what Dunleavy's doing here in the state of Alaska, or what the clown, orange clown, Donald Trump, that's right, Donald Chump, not Trump, because he's a chump, is doing in DC, then you need to reevaluate yourself. Open the Quran. Read the Quran. Read hadiths from the Ahlul Bayt, from Imam Ali alayhi salam and all the members of the Ahlul Bayt. Liberate yourself. Don't stay in this mental servitude, this mental slavery. Liberate yourself from colonialism. That is the only way we will defeat these Islamophobic, racist, anti-Shia troglodytes, not only here in Alaska, but in Kuwait, in Saudi, in Al Emirat, in Bahrain, in Qatar. This is the only way us Shia Muslims will liberate ourselves from colonialism. Inshallah, we have this day where we liberate ourselves from colonialism. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allah, keep us on the Sirat al-Mustaqim so we can, inshallah, liberate ourselves from colonialism. Because Ashhadu la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah. There is no God but Allah. There is no God but Allah, and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is his messenger. And if you follow the Sirat al-Mustaqim, if you read the Quran and follow the Quran and live that by the Quran and the Ahlul Bayt, inshallah you will be liberated from colonialism. Inshallah you will see the truth of the situation here in Alaska, that Dimwit Dunleavy is exploiting interfaith discourse in the name of violating the First Amendment, increasing colonialism, discriminating against indigenous people, discriminating against Muslims, discriminating against refugees. This is serious business, brothers and sisters. This is serious business. Okay? And we must defeat these conservative troglodytes. Okay? We must defeat these conservative troglodytes. If you read Surah Al-Imran, you will learn about the battle between the disbelievers and the believers. This is like that. This is like that. This is like the battle between the believers and the disbelievers. Dunleavy and his conservative troglodytes, they are the disbelievers. Okay? Us Muslims, we are the believers. We must defeat them. Inshallah, we will defeat them, because if we don't, the ramifications of their racist, Islamophobic, anti-Shia actions have the capacity to hurt us all. Inshallah, you guys stay safe, stay healthy. I know this kind of turned into a rant, but I'm really passionate about the subject. But inshallah, you stay safe and healthy. And inshallah, you guys, keep up, keep trying to get hasanah, keep reading Quran, keep making salat, keep making dua, keep making dhikr through all these hard times. This has been a really tough time for me as a essential employee. But inshallah, you guys stay on the Sirat al-Mustaqim. And that's all I have to say for today. Inshallah, you guys are all well.